Hey guys, tonight we're taking a long, slow ride across the vast, freezing steppes of Mongolia on a horse that doesn't really want to be here, carrying a letter that probably isn't urgent anymore. You're a courier now. The wind stings your face, your boots are stiff, and the saddle is doing unspeakable things to your posture. This is a story about ancient mail, Mongolian mail, the kind that took 300 days to arrive and often smelled like yak butter by the time it got there. And you're about to carry a message that will absolutely get delayed, and honestly, that might be the point. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop a comment below. Bonus points if you're falling asleep in a yacht. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're riding slowly, not because you want to go slow, but because this particular horse, whose name might be Soup or Regret, does not believe in rushing. The wind cuts across the grasslands like a lazy blade, dragging sleep into your eyes even as you bounce in the saddle. The bag at your side carries a sealed message. You haven't read it, of course, because tampering with mail is against regulation, and also because it's written in 4 languages, one of which looks suspiciously like drawings of soup bowls. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk circles, watching you, judging your pace. You're not worried about it stealing the message, just your dignity. The letter is headed to a border town so distant. Its name is mostly vowels, and the only known road to it was last seen by a goat in 1237. You've been riding 4 or 5 days, and already the saddle feels like it has become part of your spine. You pause at a ridge. Below you, the steppe stretches endlessly, flat, wild, beautiful, and incredibly inconvenient. This was how the Mongols moved messages, not by pigeon, not by drum, not even by yailing, which they were very good at. No, they built a vast network of horse stations called rutu, spaced just far enough apart to exhaust your will to live before giving you a slightly faster horse and a bowl of questionable stew. You're heading to the next station now. Your current mount, Soup, is starting to limp, not from injury, just from drama. You pat its neck. It does not appreciate the gesture. You pass a boulder that's been carved with something that might be ancient script, or just a very determined goat scratching an itch. No time to decipher it now. The wind picks up again, carrying flakes of snow that don't fall so much as they hover, like nature is unsure whether it wants to commit to winter or just keep being annoying. You lean forward. Your letter shifts in the bag. A tiny puff of steam rises from Soup's nose, and in that moment, you think maybe messages weren't meant to travel quickly here. Maybe slowness was a feature. Maybe the whole point of Mongolian mail wasn't just delivery, but endurance, patience, presence. Because when it takes 300 days to get a letter, you don't waste it on nonsense. You write something that matters, even if it's just, "I hope you're warm." And so you ride on, toward a station you can't see, with a message you haven't read, across a land that makes you feel very small, and very awake. For now. The sun doesn't rise here. It stretches, slowly, lazily, like someone pulling the world's biggest blanket off their feet, but refusing to sit up yet. You squint across the steppe, where the horizon never ends but somehow always looks like it's about to say something. The wind has calmed, just a little, enough for your ears to feel less like frozen dinner rolls. Soup the horse is chewing on something that may or may not have been part of your glove. You pretend not to notice. Ahead, a shape begins to form in the distance. Low, round, a dome. You know what this means, a relay station. You spur Soup forward, not out of eagerness, but because he's just spotted the same thing and is now trying to pretend he discovered it first. You bounce slightly in the saddle, hips already aching from the journey. Your legs feel like they've been stapled to a barrel, but still you ride. The station is simple, a yacht, smoke curling from its crown like a dream that forgot to rise properly. Outside, a flag flaps with the symbol of the Yam, the Mongolian courier system, You don't know what it means exactly, but you've seen it carved into bone, painted onto stone, and once tattooed onto a man's forehead who claimed to be a messenger of destiny, and then fell asleep in a stew. You dismount. Soup exhales with theatrical exhaustion. A man appears from the yacht, short, wide-shouldered, wearing more layers than a concerned grandmother. His hat is shaped like a pancake. His face is carved from wind and time. "You're late," he says. You blink. "I'm early." "You're still late," he says. "By step time." You don't ask what step time means. He ushers you into the yacht. Inside, it's warm, too warm, like someone tried to heat it once and never stopped. Your eyes sting from the smoke. A pot bubbles over a small stove, something rooty and suspicious inside. It smells like boiled decisions. Two other couriers sit on cushions. One is asleep. The other is cleaning their boots with a rabbit. You sit. Your host, let's call him Pancake, hands you a bowl of the stew. You sip. It tastes like wet leather and slow arguments. You smile politely. "Where's your next horse?" you ask. He shrugs. "Outside." You look outside. There's a goat. You look back. He grins, joking. The horse is asleep, like any good courier. You wait. You listen. And hear, in the hush of overcooked soup and thick smoke, you learn how it all started. The early Mongols didn't use paper. They didn't use scrolls. Not at first. They used mouths. Whispers. Goat messengers. No, really. Not goats with mail strapped to their backs. Goats as storage. You'd whisper a message into a goat's ear. The goat would be led across the land. At the destination, the same person would whisper into the goat's ear again, and if the goat reacted, the message had been received. You don't believe it. Neither do historians. But someone wrote it down once, and now it's stuck in the stew of possible truths. You sip again. Pancake Hat explains that the true origins of the yam were verbal memory chains. A messenger would memorize the message, word for word, sometimes entire letters, poetic forms, legal orders, battle plans, all delivered by memory. If you forgot a line, you filled it with something poetic. If you forgot a number, you guessed and apologized in advance. Sometimes, couriers delivered slightly better versions of what was originally said. One prince received a marriage proposal that included kind and sleepy eyes. Instead of fine trade relations, he accepted anyway. You look at your satchel. You wonder what's really in the message you're carrying. It's sealed, sure, but how many words in there were not what the sender intended? The sleeping courier stirs, mumbles something about soup taxes, and rolls over. You eat the last of your stew and head outside. The new horse is waiting, slightly more awake than soup, only just. Pancake hands you a pouch. Inside, a tiny carved bone, the shape of a thumbprint. "For proof," he says. "In case someone doubts you came through." You nod. Climb into the saddle. Ride. The wind picks up again. Not harsh this time, just persistent, like an old friend who keeps reminding you to sit straighter. The step stretches on. As you ride, you start to hum a tune you don't remember learning. One of the oldest tricks of the yam was song rooting, a technique where messengers sang their roots out loud to memorize the journey. The lyrics would be simple. "Yacht by the big rock, stream with the fox. Turn when the tree looks like socks. Don't stop near the hill that frowns. Bandits nap in underground towns." Silly, yes, but memorable. You try adding a verse of your own. "Wind in my mouth, rice in my boot. The last horse bit me and took my loot." You laugh, out loud. The horse flicks an ear, unimpressed. The sky darkens slightly, not from nightfall, from clouds that look like they're about to start something dramatic. You pull your scarf higher. You ride 4 hours. The landscape doesn't change much. Hills, grass, wind, the occasional bird circling like it knows more than you do. You stop once to rest. You unwrap a rice ball from your pack. It's cold, hard. You eat it anyway. A bird lands nearby. It stares at you. You stare back. It hops closer. You toss it a crumb. It nods once, then flies away. You feel strangely blessed. Then, from the horizon, you spot something unusual. A figure, standing, alone, As you approach, you realize it's not a person. It's a message pole. A tall stick with ribbons tied to it, fluttering in the wind. Messages, directions, prayers, sometimes jokes, left behind for the next courier. You read one ribbon. It says, "You're not lost, just late." Another, "There's soup ahead. It's not great." And one more, "The next horse prefers compliments." You smile, tie a ribbon of your own. You write, "I forgot what day it is, but the sky still likes me." You ride on, as the land rolls beneath you like a slow lullaby, and the mail continues its journey, 300 days at a time. You wake to a smell that could be soup, or a fire, or something that used to be both. Your horse is asleep, standing up, impressive. You, on the other hand, are not entirely sure when you fell asleep, somewhere between the message pole and the stream that gurgled insults. About your riding pasture, the sky has shifted again, blue now, but pale and stretched thin. The kind of blue you get when the clouds have taken a day off. You ride, the saddle creaks beneath you. The new horse, whom you've decided to name maybe, seems to have one goal in life, maintaining an exact average speed of almost. But you don't complain. You're used to the rhythm now, used to the silence, used to the letter that's still sealed tight in your satchel. And maybe, just maybe, that's why it's so strange when you start to forget why you're riding at all. Not completely, just little things. Where exactly are you headed? Who wrote the message? What was that thing Pancake had said about thumb bones and proof? You reach into your satchel, just to feel the scroll again. It's still there, still sealed, still mysterious. You ride on, until the grass changes. Not the color, the feeling. It's coarser now, crunchier, as if the land is resisting you. And then you see it. A hill, small, harmless looking, but strange, because it's moving. Not much, just breathing. No, snoring. You stop maybe, dismount, creep closer. It's not a hill, it's a man, lying in the grass, wrapped in his coat, using a bag of rice as a pillow. His hair is long, his boots are missing, his face is peaceful. So peaceful, you nudge him gently. He opens one eye. "Am I late?" he asks. "For what?" For the thing." You shrug. He shrugs back. You sit beside him. He smells like horse sweat and optimism. He introduces himself. Tma, a fellow courier, or former one. He doesn't seem to remember whether he finished his last delivery. But he does remember one thing. "I was carrying a message from a general to a village priest. It was urgent, probably. I think it had a drawing of a chicken on it. Or a fire." You ask what happened. He sighs. "I passed by a river that laughed at me. I fell asleep under a tree that told stories. I dreamed of soup with legs." You wait. He adds, "Then I forgot where I was going, so I stopped going." You ask if he still has the message. He shakes his head. "No, but I remember how it made me feel." You raise an eyebrow. He smiles. It was hopeful. That's when he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a pebble. Small, smooth, warm from his palm. He places it in your hand. "I think this is more important now." You don't understand. Not really. But you nod. Tuck the pebble into your pouch next to your letter. Tma waves as you mount maybe again. "Ride well," he says. "Or at least ride interestingly." You ride, back into the rhythm. And as the steppe unfolds around you like a rug designed by a sleepy cartographer, you think about messages. How sometimes, even if the words are lost, the feeling stays. How not every delay is a failure. How naps can be part of the plan. Somewhere in the grass behind you, Tma rolls over and starts snoring again. You ride 4 hours. The sun begins to dip. You spot another relay station on the horizon, this one built around a crooked tree, with branches full of old boots and cracked bowls tied to its limbs. Inside, a new host waits. You don't ask their name. They don't ask yours. They hand you soup. You eat it. It tastes like dirt, onions, and possibly nostalgia. You hand them the thumb bone from the last station. They hand you a new one. A fresh horse waits outside. Not maybe. A new one. Its name is written on a tag tied to its mane. Sigh. You chuckle. Mount, ride. You pass a stone with carvings. This time, they're legible. They say, even forgotten messages are still journeys. The wind picks up again, and the scroll in your satchel shifts, almost like it heard that. You smile, because maybe Tma was right. Maybe the letter is less about what it says and more about what it carries. You, this moment, this slowness, this ride across the in-between. And so you lean forward, pat Sai on the neck, and ride into a night that promises nothing but distance. Sai the horse lives up to its name, not because it breathes heavily or groans under your weight, but because its entire being radiates quiet exasperation. Every hoof step says, really, again. You ride anyway. The moon rises behind you, pale and enormous. A slow balloon held up by invisible strings. The step glows faintly, like the earth is remembering a dream it didn't finish. Ahead, the ground dips just a little and you notice water. Not much, just a stream, winding like someone doodled across the land with wet ink. You steer Sai toward it, thinking it's time for a break. But Sai disagrees. It speeds up. You pull the reins. Sai keeps going. Then you see it. The ducks. At first, just one. Then three. Then, too many. They line the water's edge like they own it. Small, round, judgmental. Their eyes follow you as you approach. You feel like you're walking into an accidental interrogation. You dismount. Sai stops just short of the water, snorts once, and begins chewing something that may or may not be edible. The ducks don't move. You kneel by the stream. Wash your hands. Let the cold bite at your fingers. It wakes you up in a way the ster never does. That's when one of the ducks steps forward. It's wearing something. A tag. Around its neck. You squint. It says, Approved Courier Detour Checkpoint 4B Duck Watch activated. You laugh. Then stop laughing. Because another duck steps forward. And another. Each one with a different tag. Delay Division. Unofficial Scribe. Snack Inspector. You blink. Are these official? Did the Yam really use ducks as part of their system? You reach into your satchel. Pull out the sealed letter. Show it. One of the ducks quacks softly. The others nod. And then, they move. Just a little. They part enough to reveal a small, soggy wooden sign behind them. Bridge temporarily unavailable due to napping beavers. You look around. Sure enough, a pile of sticks and very sleepy mammals lies half-submerged nearby. One of them rolls over and lets out the tiniest, most satisfied sigh you've ever heard. You smile. Because of course the beavers are sleeping. Of course the ducks are in charge. Of course the message is delayed again. You step back, decide to walk upstream. Sai follows reluctantly. You walk for an hour before you find a shallow crossing. It's muddy, but passable. As you cross, the mud tries to eat your boots. You swear the ducks are watching from a distance, judging your technique. You reach the other side, dripping and mildly offended. You mount again. Sai takes a full 30 seconds to decide if it's worth moving. Eventually, it does. The land rises into hills, just barely, and you notice a trail of small stone markers along the side of the road, not carved, just stacked, each one a different shape. You stop at one. Tied to it is a scrap of cloth, flapping in the wind. Someone's handwriting, barely legible. Detour took 2 extra days. Blame the ducks. You smile again. This isn't the first time, clearly. You keep riding. By nightfall, you reach another relay station. This one is carved partially into a hill, almost invisible, unless you're looking. Inside, warm fire. One courier. A woman sharpening a spoon. She looks up. Letter. You nod. Ducks. You nod again. She doesn't laugh. Just hands you a cup of something steaming and sits back down. You sip. It's better than stew. Barely. You ask her if she's ever delivered a message that made it on time. She laughs. Hard. No one really expects them to, she says. They just hope the message changes slowly enough to still matter when it arrives. You nod. That makes sense. The scroll in your satchel shifts again. You imagine it getting heavier not physically, but historically. You sleep on a mat rolled out by the fire. In the morning, the woman gives you a fresh horse. This one is named Sneeze. It sneezes once, perfectly on cue, and looks deeply offended by its own biology. You ride. The hills soften. You pass a statue, a stone figure shaped like a man holding a scroll. He has no face, just a big open mouth and outstretched hands. Someone carved words beneath him. Speak the message. If you forget, sing it. You ride in silence for a while, just listening to the wind. Eventually, you start humming. A tune you didn't know you knew. Maybe the scroll is leaking into your memory. Maybe the road is singing it to you. Either way, the rhythm helps. As you ride into the next stretch of grassland, you spot something odd. A pile of shoes. Old, leather, worn, all sizes. Next to them, a stick in the ground. A tag reads, "Shoes of those who walked when horses refused." You laugh out loud. Sneeze whinnies as if to say, "Don't even think about it." You keep riding, and for the next few hours, you don't think about the message. You just think about how weird and beautiful this mail system is. How absurd. How honest. Because delivering a letter over hundreds of days isn't efficient, but it is personal. And maybe that's why it mattered. Even if it took forever, even if it passed through ducks, even if the person receiving it had already forgotten they were waiting, because the rider remembered, and that's what made it real. The next station looks like it was built out of leftovers. Bits of wagon wheels, faded fabric, and a roof that seems to be held together entirely by wishful thinking. You approach slowly, half expecting it to collapse under the weight of your gaze. But no, it holds. Like everything else out here, it's old, stubborn, and still doing its job, just not enthusiastically. You dismount, sneeze. The horse immediately lays down. You pat its neck. Fair enough. A young boy emerges from the doorway. He's holding a small velvet pouch. Not a bowl of soup, not a scroll, a pouch. He says nothing, just holds it out. You take it. It's soft, dark blue, embroidered with the image of a four-legged animal. Quite identify. Possibly a yak. Possibly a very depressed bear. You open it. Inside, 3 small copper coins, a tuft of yak hair, and a tiny, pressed flower. You look up at the boy. What is this? He shrugs. Envelope. Then disappears back into the structure, like a leaf blowing into a drawer. You stare at the pouch. This is the message. Not a scroll. Not a letter. Just objects. Clues. The Mongols had a word for this. Bichu. Sealed, non-written messages. A way of sending meaning without using language. Because paper tears. Ink fades. But coins, hair, memory, that lasts longer. Sometimes the message wasn't in the words. It was in the weight. You sit by a lopsided bench nearby. Lay the contents out on a flat stone. The coins each has a different stamp. One is square, one round, one shaped like a tiny melon slice. None of them matched the current empire currency. You guess they represent something old, or something owed. The yak hair, twisted into a knot, symbol of loyalty, or possibly shedding. It's unclear. The flower, pressed perfectly, fragile but still pink around the edges. A mountain bloom, the kind that only grows on ridges too steep for horses. Someone picked this by hand. Someone climbed to get it. This is the message, and you're the one meant to carry it. The station keeper, an older man, now appears beside you with a cup of warm milk and a blanket that smells like 10 winters. He says, "That's the Emperor's favorite envelope." You raise an eyebrow. He continues, "Used for delicate messages. One's meant to be felt, not read." You nod slowly. "Who's it going to?" He shrugs, doesn't say. Of course it doesn't. You repack the pouch. Tie it to your satchel with care. Sneeze rises from its dramatic nap. You climb back on. Ride. The landscape opens again. This time flatter, windier. The grass bows under the breeze, like it knows how to show respect. You hum the song again, the one you didn't know you knew. It changes. Without warning, the melody shifts, slows, becomes warmer. Maybe it's the pouch. Maybe it's you. After an hour, you pass a small pile of stones stacked deliberately into a pyramid. There's a marker beside it. It says, "Leave your doubts. Pick up someone else's hope." You place one of the copper coins there. No reason. It just feels right. You ride on, now carrying a pouch with 2 coins, 1 flower, one tuft of yak hair and something else. A mood. The sun dips lower, glowing orange and wide, like it doesn't want to end the day, but knows it should. You stop briefly at a grove of thin trees. Their leaves rattle like teeth laughing in their sleep, and there, tied to a branch, you see a message ribbon. It reads, "Don't let the silence fool you. This matters." You nod, ride on, until night fully arrives, and you're met by a figure at the next station. An old woman with a cloak too large and a voice too small. She doesn't ask your name, just points to a warm stall and says, "Sleep." You obey. No stew, no questions, no explanations. You lay down, curl up, and fall asleep with the velvet pouch clutched to your chest. And you dream of someone opening the pouch with tears in their eyes, not because they read anything, but because they knew someone had carried it all this way, through wind, doubt, ducks, and silence. And it arrived, maybe late, but right on time. You wake to wind, not the rude kind, the one that slaps. You awake and yells about chores, but the thoughtful kind, the wine that rustles a curtain, tugs at your sleeve, and whispers, "It's time." Your horse is already saddled. You never asked who did it. Things like that just happen now. You stretch, gather your satchel and the velvet pouch, and step outside. The sky is a pale smear of clouds, unsure whether it wants to snow or glare. You tighten your scarf. The wind nips at your nose like an affectionate ghost. The old woman at the station hands you a small pastry wrapped in dried leaf. "For the desert," she says. You blink. The what? She's already gone. You ride. The landscape changes gradually. Snowflakes appear. First just one or two, shy and drifting. Then more until the ground begins to blur, and the horizon fades like someone smudged the world with a damp sleeve. The horse beneath you, this one named Lint, according to the tag, plods forward with a pasture that says, "Fine, but I don't like it." Snow crunches under each hoof. The velvet pouch swings gently at your side. Its weight familiar now, like a heartbeat or a word stuck on the tip of your tongue. You ride 4 hours, white all around, but not cold enough to be cruel, just enough to remind you that this world was not made for rushing. Eventually, the snow thins. You descend, and the snow turns to sand. Yes, sand, just like that. No ceremony, no fanfare. You cross a ridge, and the white ends, and the brown begins. Fine. Dry dust that stings your lips and makes you squint. The horse doesn't stop, just shifts its hooves with more care. You pull your scarf tighter, and keep going. You didn't expect this. You weren't warned about a desert, but you also weren't told about the ducks. So maybe this is normal. The sand is warm beneath you, the air drier, but oddly comforting. You see nothing 4 hours. No trees, no tents, no stones, just sand, and then a post, stuck into the ground. Leaning, you ride up to it. At the top, a small flag made of cloth, frayed and sun-bleached. On it, handwritten in careful script, "You're still going. That's all that matters." You grin, pat Lint's neck. The horse sighs. You keep going. Eventually, you find a tent, round, low, flapping slightly in the wind. No one's outside. You dismount, push aside the flap. A man is boiling something in a kettle, the size of your regrets. He doesn't look up. "Tea?" he asks. You nod. Sit. The floor is sand-covered wool. Warmth radiates from the stove. The tea's poured into a cup made of hammered copper. It tastes like mint and sunburn. He finally looks at you. You delivering something. You nod again. He doesn't ask to see it. Doesn't ask where it's going. Just says, "You've come far." That's enough. You sit in silence. Drink. Watch the kettle steam. When you rise, he hands you a new scarf. Blue and soft. "For the next part," he says. "The hard part." He shakes his head. "The quiet part." You step outside. The sun is lower now. The sand glows gold, and you ride again. Through dunes and wind and shadows that look like they might have stories if you ask politely. Eventually, you stop, not because you're tired, but because the horse has stopped. Lint is staring at something, a shape in the sand. You dismount, approach. It's a marker, A wooden post half buried in dust, with a carved image on top. A saddle. No words, just the shape of a saddle. You brush more sand away and find a pouch hanging from a hook. Smaller than yours. Empty. You take it anyway. Tie it to your belt. Now you carry two. You ride on. Night falls quickly in the desert. The sky turns deep blue, stars spilling like scattered grains. You stop under an outcropping of rock, build a tiny fire from dry brush and a stick someone kindly left behind. You sip the rest of the tea, and before you sleep, you check the pouches. Still there, still quiet, still meaningful. The coins, the flour, the yak hair, and now the new pouch. Empty, but somehow full. You lie back, watch the stars blink, and think, if it took 300 days for a message to arrive, maybe that wasn't because of distance. Maybe it was because meaning takes time. And maybe you're not just delivering a message. Maybe you're becoming one. You wake to silence. The fire is a faint smudge of ash. The stars have melted into dawn, and the desert is a bowl of stillness, rimmed by pale hills. The wind has stopped entirely, as if even the air is holding its breath. Lint the horse is already standing, staring into the distance like it knows something you don't. You stand beside it, brush the sand off your clothes, and check the pouches. Still tied, still warm from your side. You mount, and the ride continues. The silence is strange. After so many days of wind, of crunching hooves, of rustling ribbon messages and the occasional duck-related scuffle, this nothingness is louder than expected. Even your own thoughts seem hesitant. You ride until the sun is high and the land begins to rise again. Hills appear, gently sloped and covered in a soft fuzz of grass like the desert gave up and let spring have its turn. That's when you see him. At first, just a dot on the hill, then closer, a man on a horse, moving in loops, not traveling, not riding away, just looping, around and around, like a carousel that lost its music. You slow Lint to a walk. The other rider sees you, waves. His horse is missing one shoe. His hat is askew, and he is smiling. Hello, he calls. You wave back. He stops. So do you. The two of you sit there, riders at rest, the wind still hiding somewhere behind the hills. Courier, he asks. You nod. You. He nods, cheerfully. Maybe. I think so. I have this. He reaches into his saddlebag and pulls out a scroll. Unsealed, crumpled, barely a scroll anymore. You raise an eyebrow. What's the message? He shrugs. No idea. I've had it so long I think it started talking to me. You laugh. A real one. He smiles wider. I used to know where I was going. Had it memorized. Mile by mile. What happened? He scratches his chin. Got distracted by a festival. Then a singing well. Then a dream I couldn't quite leave. And now, here I am, riding circles. You look down the hill. His tracks are clear, round, worn deep into the earth, like a question asked too many times. Why not stop? You ask. He shrugs again. I think I'm part of the route now, like a checkpoint. You nod. He squints at you. What are you carrying? You show him the velvet pouch. He leans forward to look. Bichu, he says softly, then grins. You're carrying silence. You nod. It feels true. Where are you going? He asks. You pause. I don't know. He laughs. Then you're doing it right. You both sit for a while longer. Birds pass overhead, tiny shadows that blink across the grass. Finally, he pulls something from his coat. A ribbon, faded green, tied in a neat loop. Here, he says, handing it to you. For when you forget. Forget what? He smiles again. Exactly. You take it. Tie it to your wrist. Ride on. The path ahead rises gently, the grass thickening, the air cooler. You think about the rider behind you. His circles. His cheer. His forgotten mission. You wonder if that's your future. But you don't feel lost. Not yet. The next station comes into view near sunset. It's carved into a cliff wall, just a wooden door, crooked and proud, set into the stone like a secret that got tired of hiding. You knock. A woman opens the door. She looks at your face, your horse, your dust-covered boots. Bichu, she asks. You nod. She lets you in. Inside is a small room by oil lamps and lined with dried herbs. The smell is calming: lavender, mint, a hint of something citrusy, but confused. She offers you water. You drink. Offers you food. You eat. Offers you rest. You refuse for now. You ask her about the message. She doesn't ask what's inside, only how long you've carried it. You think, then say, long enough to feel it. She nods like that's a perfectly normal answer. She gives you a new token, a tiny bell, made of bone. Not to ring, she says, just to remember sound exists. You thank her, sleep lightly, and leave at first light, the bell tucked into your pouch beside the coins, the flour, the yak hair, and the second empty pouch that still refuses to explain itself. You ride, and you hum, because you've realized something. The silence isn't empty, it's full of meaning. It's what's left when the message has gone too deep for words. And maybe that's what you're carrying now. Not a letter, not a pouch, but a quiet truth, riding alongside you like a shadow that knows how to wait. The path narrows, not in a dramatic, dangerous way, just enough to make you sit a little straighter. The hills have become shyer, curling into each other like sleepy animals. The wind returns, gentle at first, then more curious. It plays with your scarf, tugs at your sleeves, and lifts the ends of the ribbon tied to your wrist. You're climbing now, higher than you've been this whole journey. The sky feels closer. You take a breath. It tastes like altitude and old stories. Lint the horse snorts and keeps going, hooves sure on the rocky trail. Despite its earlier grumpiness, it seems to understand this part is important, sacred, maybe. You round a bend and stop, because there it is, a tower, not a tall, proud one like in cities. No stone, no guards, no spiral stairs. This tower is made of bones, driftwood, broken wheels, old saddles, melted candles, ribbons, hundreds of them, tied to every edge, every gap. Each one flutters in the wind like a whisper trying to remember what it was supposed to say. You dismount. The air is thin up here, not unfriendly, just polite, like it's giving you space. You walk toward the tower. A figure sits at its base, wrapped in cloaks, surrounded by parchment. They're writing something, but not with ink. They're using smoke. A pot beside them bubbles gently. They scoop from it with a long spoon and wave the steam through a copper stencil over a piece of cloth. When the steam touches the cloth, it stains. Faint outlines, shapes, letters, like clouds that decided to stay. They look up. Their face is marked with fine creases, not from age, from wind exposure, like they've spent years squinting into breezes. You're the courier, they say. You nod. They reach into a pouch and pull out a small slate, show it to you. It reads, "Did you bring the silence?" You hold out your pouch. They don't open it, just place their hand over it, close their eyes, smile. "You did," they whisper. They stand slowly, every movement precise, like the wind has to approve. "You're not the first," they say, "and you won't be the last, but you're the only one who brought it this far." You ask what this place is. They gesture to the tower. "This is the archive of unspoken things." You blink. They continue. Every courier eventually reaches a point where the message changes. Sometimes it can't be delivered in words anymore, so we tie it here. They point to the ribbons. Each one is labeled, not with names, not with destinations, just feelings, regret, first snowfall, the time my mother almost sank, a laugh I forgot I missed. Maybe. You stare at the tower again. It's taller than it looks. One ribbon, near the bottom, flaps hard in the wind. You read it. "I was here, and it mattered." The figure offers you a piece of fabric and a charcoal stick. You write nothing at first. Then, without thinking, you write, "Still riding, still listening." You hand it to them. They tie it to the tower dot just beneath one that reads, "The letter never arrived, but the rider did." You stay for a while, drink warm milk from a wooden bowl, watch the clouds form below you. Before you leave, the windwriter gives you a new pouch, empty. "Your next message," they say. You nod, take it, add it to the others, mount lint again, and ride down the mountain, back into the world of dirt and rivers and beavers who nap through bridge duty. But now different, because now you know where some of the messages go, not to cities, not to kings, but to places where they can turn into wind, where silence becomes history, and couriers become part of the story they were delivering. The descent is quiet. You expected fanfare, a dramatic shift, thunder, perhaps, but no, the world simply softens. The wind loses its urgency, the grass returns, the rocks step politely aside. You and Lint ride downward, following a path that isn't marked but feels right. You reach the base of the ridge by midday. The sun filters through the clouds like a secret trying to make itself known. Ahead, a clearing. In the middle of it, a post. Just one. No roof, no station, no tent. Just a single, short wooden post with a faded sign. On it, you must choose. That's all. You circle it slowly. No arrows, no distances, no destinations. Just 3 worn paths leading away in different directions. Left, a trail into dense woods. The trees knit together like old arguments. Right, a winding road of flat stones, curving up a hill that hums faintly. Straight, a simple dirt track, unremarkable except for the ribbon tied to a stick, half buried in the soil. The ribbon is green, like the one on your wrist. You stop, think. Lint looks at you as if to say, "Don't look at me. I just eat grass." You dismount, walk to the post, kneel beside it. There, carved into the wood so faintly you almost miss it. The message changes depending on where it's delivered. You sit. This isn't just a choice of direction. This is a question. Where does meaning belong? You check your satchel. Pouches, scrolls, tokens, still intact, still unread, but heavier now, not with weight, with possibility. You touch each one by one. The velvet pouch with the flower and the yak hair. The empty pouch from the bone tower. The ribbon from the rider who forgot everything. The bell that should never be rung. And now this moment. The post hums, faintly. You take a deep breath. And then, you pick a direction. We won't say which one, because this part of the story isn't about the road. It's about choosing. It's about the rider deciding where meaning should land. Even if the words have faded. Even if the destination was never clear. You mount Lint again. He doesn't protest. Just turns with you. Takes the first step like he's done it 100 times before. As you ride away from the post, you hear something. Soft, distant, like a memory brushing past your ear. A voice, a laugh, wind through trees. You smile. The message is still with you. But now, you're part of it. And someone somewhere will feel its arrival. Even if they never know it came by horse, across deserts and rivers, through naps and towers and choices. You ride until the trees thicken, or the stones sing, or the ribbon flaps gently behind you. We won't say which, but we'll say this. The road welcomes you, and it's been waiting a long, long time. The town doesn't appear gradually, it just is. One moment you're riding through a narrow stretch of nothing, a place that feels like the inside of a closed book, and the next, you round a bend, and there it is. Houses, flags, smoke curling from chimneys, but it's quiet, not abandoned, just expectant. Like the entire place hit pause. Lint the horse slows as if sensing something sacred. You enter on a narrow cobbled path. The stones are mismatched and old. Some have names carved into them. Some just have dates, others. Symbols, stars, birds, spoons, a single potato. People appear in the doorways. No one speaks. They watch you pass. Their eyes aren't suspicious, just hopeful, like someone waiting for a letter they forgot they sent. A child steps forward and places a flower in your hand. It's dry, crinkled, blue. You nod, say nothing, because somehow that feels like the correct answer. The town square is small. A fountain trickles in the center, not grand, not fancy, just a basin with a stone goat spitting water into its own hooves. You dismount. No one tells you what to do. Still, you reach into your satchel, pull out the velvet pouch, hold it up. The entire town sighs, not in disappointment, in relief. like they've all been holding a breath for decades. An old man steps forward. His back is bent like a question mark that finally got tired of asking. He extends his hand. You place the pouch into it. He doesn't open it, just holds it to his chest, closes his eyes, and whispers, "It came." A bell rings. Not the one in your pouch. Not even a real bell, maybe. But the sound moves through the air like a ribbon caught in a breeze. Suddenly, music starts. Not loud, not celebratory in the usual way, but gentle flutes, hand drums, humming. A festival of silence. You are not asked to speak. You are simply handed warm bread, and a cushion, and a cup of something that tastes like sleep. The people gather. They tie ribbons to trees. Ribbons with no writing, just colors, each one representing a message they hoped would arrive. Some of them cry. Others laugh. One woman just stares at the stars that aren't there yet. You sit by the fountain. Someone places a ribbon in your hand. It says nothing, but you feel everything. The message in your bones, the moles behind you, the ribbon on your wrist, the tower in the wind. That night, the town doesn't sleep. They rest, yes, but with their eyes open, lying on rooftops, leaning on fences, arms around loved ones, just feeling. You sleep, though, not because you're tired, but because this, finally, is a place that doesn't need anything from you. You wake to find the pouch returned to your side. Empty now. The coin's gone. The flower too. But something's been added. A feather. Small. Soft. The color of moonlight. You hold it gently and ride on. No fanfare. No speech. No thank you. Because this was never about applause. It was about delivery and what it means to arrive. Some messages get delayed. Others start wars. This one accidentally caused both a nap and a duel. You're riding beside a slow stream now. The water murmurs, gently. A silvery whisper over flat stones. You blink slowly in the saddle. The horizon is soft. A smear of plum-grey hills in the distance. The wind smells like old hay and something faintly sweet, like dried apricots stored in a poet's coat pocket. They say there once was a scroll. Nothing grand. Just a little one, rolled tight with a blue ribbon, tied the way lovers tie things when they're trying not to look sentimental. It was written by a poet, or a horse groomer who thought in rhyme. Historians disagree. Either way, it began with a pillow, specifically, the softest pillow ever stuffed into a Mongolian yurt, filled with goose feathers and stitched, with silk thread stolen from a trader's abandoned saddlebag. The poet had slept on that pillow the night before they wrote the scroll. They dreamed of a courier with strong shoulders and terrible posture, a messenger who delivered every letter with a yawn, but somehow made you feel like the only person on the step. And when the scroll was written, folded, and sealed, it wasn't marked urgent. It wasn't marked anything, just tucked into a pouch alongside the scent of lavender and the single cat hair. Here's where things got confusing. The courier, his name might have been Togtor, or just Tog, depending on who's telling it, was already running late. He'd slept through his rooster, then through a thunderstorm, then through another courier yelling, "Get up, the con is waiting." So when he saw the scroll, he assumed it was a breakup letter. He didn't read it. That would have been rude, but he held it for a moment, and it just felt sad. He delivered it anyway. Unfortunately, the recipient wasn't the poet's lover. He was a rival poet, and he did think it was a challenge. The phrasing, the way the scroll smelled faintly of smugness, it all pointed to provocation. So he wrote a response. Not a letter, a duel. It was held at dawn, near a frozen river. The original poet arrived groggy, wearing two different boots and holding a pillow instead of a sword. But before any blood was spilled, the courier Tog yawned so loudly it startled both poets. He then explained the entire mistake in one long sentence that included the phrase, "I thought it was about missing someone, not stabbing them." Everyone stared, and then, slowly, the poet duel turned into a nap. The river thawed, the scrolls were burned for warmth, and somewhere, in a nearby yurt, someone started writing a new letter, this time with a clear address, and absolutely no poetry, You keep riding. The sun is low now, turning the stream to molten bronze. Your horse sighs. You imagine the scrolls of history full of pillows, naps, and misdelivered love floating away downstream. There's always time for another mistake, and always time to rewrite it softly. They meant well, but mostly they just stared. By now, the horses' hooves sound like distant drums, not war drums, sleep drums. The kind that signal you have absolutely nowhere to be. You pass a crooked tree, its branches twisted like the handwriting of someone very tired, and up ahead, perched on a wooden post, is a bird. No ordinary bird, a messenger pigeon, or as the Mongols came to call them, sky scribes with opinions. See, there was a brief chapter in Mongolian courier history that tried to embrace the feathered revolution. No saddles, no snow, just wings and wind. It made sense. The steppe was vast, and pigeons didn't need lunch breaks. But things didn't go smoothly. For one, the pigeons were picky. They didn't like just any message. If the scroll was too long, they'd leave it behind. If it was scented, especially with goat milk ink, they'd peck it into shreds. One village tried sending a message asking for more flour. The pigeon flew halfway, then turned around and brought the scroll back, along with a small feather and a single crumb, interpreted as, "Do it yourself." Another pigeon named something, like Sarnai or Just Claw, delivered a love note by dropping it directly on the recipient's head. With a splat, the ink ran, the message smudged. All that remained were the words, "Yours, always." It was unclear whether that was affection or a sarcastic threat. Eventually, the pigeons began returning with other messages attached, not from people, from other pigeons. Drawings, pebbles, even a small beetle, once wrapped in thread like a gift. One courier said the birds were mocking them. Another swore the pigeons could read the messages and rated them silently. But with expressive beaks, the final straw, a grand imperial decree, written in golden ink, was sent to a distant governor. The pigeons circled twice, then dropped the scroll into a latrine. It was retrieved, barely, and the stains were historical. After that, the birds were retired, not punished, just released politely, with murmured apologies and a bag of seed. Some say they still carry notes, just for fun. No delivery required, just little secrets on the wind, like you are missed. Or don't worry, the goats remember you. You blink slowly. The wind picks up, ruffling the edge of your coat. Somewhere above, wings flutter, and you feel the faintest judgment, but mostly peace. If you got lost on the Mongolian steppe, sometimes that was the plan. You're following a path now, not a real one, just a kind of trail that horses and wind agree upon for a while. Faint tracks in soft earth, weaving gently between low hills. The sky above you stretches so wide it almost hums. In your satchel is a map, hand-drawn, fraying at the edges, like it's been rolled and unrolled by people who didn't trust it, but carried it anyway, because it wasn't a helpful map. Not entirely. It was part of a short-lived experiment in Mongolian postal history, the misleading courier chart, beautifully illustrated, but mischievous by design, created by a retired scribe with a sharp sense of humor and, some said, a mild grudge against cartography in general. The map looked official, thick parchment, gold filigree around the edges, even a compass rose that pointed eastish, usually, but if you followed it too closely, you might end up at a salt flat labeled absolutely a river, a circle of trees with the note, perfect place for existential panic, or a lake, deep and cold, marked with the phrase, shortcut for bandits, just kidding, or not. Bandits did fall for it. More than once, they tried to intercept couriers by using these false trails, only to wander straight into goose nests, hornet swarms, or legend says a field of mocking marmots that hissed on Tuesdays. Some say the map maker was a courier once, lost one too many lunches, fell into one too many ditches, so they made a map not for finding the way but for avoiding the worst kinds of days. Oddly enough, it worked, because real couriers learned to read it differently, not with their eyes, but with instinct. If a trail seemed to clear, they'd look for the trick. If a hill was shaped like a slouching yak, they knew to go left, not right. They even added their own edits. Tiny charcoal notes in the corners, messages like "Don't trust a tree that whistles," or "The stars lie less than this parchment." Eventually, the Empire caught on. The maps were banned, or, more accurately, retired with polite disinterest, but a few copies still lived, tucked under saddles or hidden behind saddle blankets, not for direction, but for company. Because if you were going to get lost, you might as well enjoy it. The wind is still. You fold the map carefully, the parchment soft with age. In the distance, the steppe rolls like a lazy wave. Even the clouds look like they're trying to nap. Some places don't need couriers, just canyons that remember what you said. The sky has cooled to that gentle lavender blue, the color of tepid tea and half-closed eyelids. Your horse walks slowly now, who's muffled by soft moss and old dust. You're heading toward a place no map ever quite captured. It's called Echo Hollow, or Echo Gulch, or Echo Canyon. The name changes depending on who you ask, but the story never does. A long time ago, when the Empire was still tying silk knots around every scroll, there was a village so remote, even the most determined couriers groaned when assigned to it. Snow blocked it in 4 months. Wolves loitered on its roads like gossiping uncles, and the nearest post station was a week's ride and a spiritual awakening away. So the villagers improvised. They found a canyon, a narrow one, shaped just right to carry sound for miles. Not yell miles, not scream until your lungs give out miles, but soft speech, if whispered just so, would bounce and bend like a curious ghost. They called it the listening path, and that's how they sent messages. No scroll, no ink, just one person on one cliff, speaking to the wind, and someone else, far away, cupping their ears at dusk, listening for the words to arrive. At first, it worked for simple things. "We have cabbage. Send firewood. Don't trust the man with 3 hats." But then came the goodbye. A girl named Marin stood at the edge of the canyon. She had a horse, a satchel, and the kind of eyes that memorize things without trying. She was leaving to be a courier herself, and before she rode off, she whispered into the canyon, "Tell Arma I'll come back when the river forgets my name." It echoed, once, twice, then again, then, oddly, again. People said it kept going. 4 days, maybe weeks. The wind liked the phrase too much to let it go, and long after Marine had galloped out of sight, villagers said they could still hear her voice on certain mornings, soft and stubborn. The message was never officially delivered. No parchment, no stamp. But Armar smiled every time it returned. You ride past the canyon now. Its cliffs steep, sunlit, and silent, except for a whisper that might be the wind, or might be for you. "I'll come back." You blink. The message fades, bouncing from stone to stone, traveling nowhere, but also everywhere. The horse is tired. The road is soft. And sometimes, the longest wait is the most human thing of all. The trail disappears now. It's not gone. Just resting. You're no longer following tracks. You're just trusting where your horse chooses to go. The grass is tall here, brushed with silver by the moon. Even the stars feel like they're blinking slowly, too tired to twinkle. You've traveled so far, not just in distance, but in time. From goat whispers and velvet envelopes, to canyons that echo goodbyes and birds that judged your handwriting, all to deliver something. Not gold, not secrets, just a message, from one heart to another. And sometimes, that took 300 days, because first, someone had to write it, and they had to mean it, even if their ink ran out halfway through, even if they crossed out love, and replaced it with regards, but whispered love anyway. Then it had to wait for the right courier. A horse, a pouch, a moment when the snow wasn't too deep, and the wind didn't sound like laughter that meant danger. Then it had to survive the post stations, the ones with no coffee, the ones with too much sheep inside, the ones where someone tried to read your letter and accidentally kissed it instead. And all of it took time, so much time, but not because people were lazy, because people were trying. And trying is slow, deliberate, sleepy, even. But oh, when that message arrived, when someone opened a pouch to find a scrap of paper, creased and smudged, and read, "Still here, still thinking of you." It didn't matter that it was 300 days late. It arrived exactly when it needed to, because there is no real late in the step, only finally. You're barely riding now, just swaying. Your horse knows the way. The wind hums a lullaby. Somewhere, someone is still waiting for a message, or maybe just a hug. Would you wait 300 days? Of course you would. That's what humans do best. The saddle creaks once, the night settles in, and somewhere, softly, a goat sneezes. You're home. Sleep well, courier. You've delivered everything that matters.